Hi good people, this is Michael with Megku Tech Media. In this video, we're going to be addressing three objectives. Number one, cleaning up our long overdue issue with cable management, primarily with our power and Ethernet cabling in our server rack cabinet. Number two, reconfiguring our internal rack layout, consolidating space by repositioning our rails. And number three, creating a good foundation for future additions and updates to our environment. We'll get started with a quick overview of our current setup. Everything starts with our 15U fully modular, temperature controlled server rack cabinet. This is a great rack for home labs as well as small to medium enterprise deployments. This cabinet comes with pre-drilled knockouts, which can be used for massive cabling runs as well as mounting multiple top mounted fan exhausts. It also has rolling casters and stationary adjustable feet. Our internals have a KVM solution, which we'll be updating soon. Some Dell gear consisting of an R710, which is our workhorse, 12 guests supported by a EXXI 6.5 host setup, an R510, which is doing nothing at the moment. It's a powered down bare metal install of Windows Server 2019. I wanted to play around with Active Directory a little bit to see what the differences were between 2016 and 2019. A whole bunch of Azure, let's just say that. Next up, we have our MD1000 storage array, which we will be basically decommissioning. We have our Power Connect managed switch, which is in an unmanaged state right now. I'm a big fan of pfSense, so it carries a majority of the load there. Our odd man out is an HP DL380 Generation 6 server. Again, this is a great server. I like what HP offers as well as Dell. So finally wrapping up, we've got our Smart 1500 trip light and our PDU. This trip light's been awesome. I've only had to change the battery once in 9 years, and that was literally a year ago. So here's our issue. Behind the cabinet, you see this nice salad of wiring. We've got a nice mix of Ethernet cables and power cables and VGA cables. My personal favorite are the power bricks and larger plugs that just make it hard to get to anything or remove anything because they have to be unplugged and they just are generally impeding the works. A bit of a mess. Not quite the worst, but definitely room for improvement. That's the challenge of this video. Next, we'll go ahead and start the removal of our defunct server rails. This is a recently departed R410, another good server. You see our R710 here, as well as you should see just the top portion of our HP server there. It will be good to relocate all the consumer devices to a separate power strip, isolating them away, something that will give them plenty of space, especially with the weird configurations that manufacturers continue to deliver, where you have one power brick that in some cases will take up 3 power receptacles just to plug in one slot. So just as a note, I highly recommend mapping out or planning your cable wiring. We'll go through that in a future video, but just I want to stress the urgency of knowing where all your cables go, especially as the implementations will get a lot more complex than what we have here today. I'm speaking of the 42U rack installs with, 1, maybe 4, maybe 8 switches in a chassis with plenty of cabling to wire up an entire environment, 200 workstations, 10 server solutions. You're going to want to know where all that cabling goes. Gone and taken off one of the side panels here, primarily starting the routing process of getting these cables down the left side of the rack's internals. Now we're going to pull out our tried and true MD1000. Again, I love this device. It's just extremely loud, a little power hungry, and the hard drive configurations come in a 3.5 format. So I am looking to try to convert everything over to smaller 2.5 or SSD compatible sizes. So that's really the real reason why we're getting rid of this guy. So we're going to slide up our trip light in its place. Going to secure that with Velcro along the front bottom. This way it's anchored, still mobile enough to remove in a pinch. Now we start removing some of the older zip ties used to hold a temperature sensor that was connected to a PDU, which controlled the rear mounted intake fans of the same cabinet. Today this cabinet sits in a comfortable, always constant 74, 76-ish range in an office. So we start placing some zip ties here to loosely create a channel that we can snake our power cables through. So another quick note, I want to talk about Velcro and zip ties. So first, anything that you do to accomplish what you want or need really can't be wrong. Now, arguably, people can say there's better ways of doing things, but right now I've been a big fan of using Velcro zip ties, even cable hooks and loops in server chassis and server cabinets, because it's helps to take some of the weight away, the loops and the hooks, but also just using the zip ties make everything nice and clean. As you can see here, started using some very bright colored zip ties because through my experiences, it's sometimes hard to track down those zip ties, especially if they're black and the cabling is black. And if you are in low light scenarios, which in some cases you will be when dealing with servers, especially server racks, bright yellow, bright orange, bright pink zip tie makes all the difference in finding those. There's really no wrong way to do anything, or another way to say that is there's unlimited ways of doing a configuration or setup. Personally, I was a big fan a few years ago of no zip tie spared, literally placing a zip tie 1/2 inch to 1 inch for every bundle of cable that I had, whether that was a workstation setup versus a full server deployment. Made for some really professional looking deliveries for the customer, awesome gaming PC setups for the desk, and complete nightmares for when you need to troubleshoot or pull out those cables. Our new surge protector power strip is situated in the back of the cabinet. This will be plugged directly into the trip light. The trip light also pulls double duty as the master power control switch as well. We continue to measure off enough power cable lengths to reach the targeted receptacles in our trip light. I have to say though, most of the deliveries for racks that I've seen lately in the last 2 years have all come with nice manufactured logoed Velcro fasteners, and they work well. They're highly reusable. They do have some failure points when it comes to adhesive failure. Right now we're speaking of fastening, meaning fastening to the actual cabinet or fastening to the undermount side of a desk, and bundling that wire up and making it nice and clean with Velcro or zip ties. We're going to apply a few more zip ties, enough to route yet not immobilize the cable. If we do this correctly, there will not be a need to power down any single device to get to or remove another device. Okay, unless we're talking about the trip light, then all bets are off, but then that's even at the bottom of the rack and already out of the way, so chances are we will not need to finagle with that. The journey now takes us to the removal of old rails. When dealing with rails, definitely look for toolless rails. Toolless rail kits are pretty much the only way things are sold today, especially brand new. However, there are some of the older rail systems still floating around, especially if you purchase things off eBay and Craigslist. I've purchased a couple servers where I've had to basically replace the rails immediately, because the rails were the older rails that you had to pull the server all the way out, the length of the server, then plus another, I'm gonna probably over exaggerate this, like 3 feet of additional space in order to get the server cleanly away from the rack. Typically what you want today is where you pull the rack out, the body of the server comes out, and then you just lift up and everything decouples nice and cleanly. Now we start repositioning our rails for our servers that are going to be coming in shortly. We'll go ahead and take a look at the back view of the cabinet now with some of the remaining wiring that we're situating. On the back of the rack, we'll begin fastening the rear rail connectors, snapping everything in place nice and securely. Pretty easy when you have the right rails. The consumer devices are happy in their new power strip home, not obstructing anything, with plenty of space. Anything remaining or dangling is earmarked for, again, a future device which will be coming shortly. This turned out pretty good. With everything now clean and decluttered, we have our great foundational start for new projects. If we need to add more cabling, it's not a big deal. We've got plenty of free space and plenty of expansion. This is the look that we were going for with the front of the cabinet. The power brick for our KVM is still hanging out a bit. So generally you want to place that cabling in the face path of the device that is situated in the rack. That way when you go to pull that device out, the cabling should pull either from the front or the back of the device and just cleanly slide out of the way, allowing you free access to the device. We've added some more zip ties to the Ethernet cables running along the right side of the cabinet. Okay, good people, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you haven't, please click the subscribe button. It really helps our channel grow so we can continue making more videos. Click the notification bell to be alerted of our new videos as they are released. We would love to engage with you further, so like this video, leave us your feedback in the comments. Also, you can find all of our social media links in the notes section below. And until next video, take care.